Testing for the YouTube stream. Testing for the YouTube stream.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Today is June 28, 2023, and we are resuming our afternoon session for the day and dealing with the remainder of the agenda. Welcome to the Scarborough District Committee of Adjustment, City of Toronto. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through a WebEx webinar, which is an online digital platform. And it is streamed onto the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using the WebEx webinar, which is moderated by city staff, and anyone who's wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching it on the YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and will have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to the panelist where your item is being held. During your time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist if you fail to respect this instruction. Before we begin, we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. In accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to a property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on any application must submit a written request for the decision by email Please ensure that you include your name, address, and an email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or the TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision of the to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, or the TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, those identified or defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. In terms of the hearing procedure, I will call each item as it's in the order listed on the agenda. In terms of making submissions where an application is uncontested, or the agent or the applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or the agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5 minutes. The applicant or the agent and the owner, if they wish to speak with us, please let the chair know so that we can give you the opportunity to speak. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters that have been outlined in the application. The applicant or the agent will proceed first and will make a presentation of the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposal at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if it is substantially revised to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those who are entitled to receive the notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposition to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. I would like to remind everyone here that we are here to hear your concerns and to listen to your concerns with the application, but repeating the same comments will not advance your cause. If you are a large group of people and you wish to assign or have a spokesperson for your submissions and your presentation, please do so. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or the agent would have an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. That will mark the end of the discussion, and then the application will be taken into committee for a decision. I would like to ask if there are any declarations of interest of panel or staff for items that are listed in the afternoon session, and those would be items 16 to 21. And at this point, I would like to declare a conflict, and I have a conflict with item 20, as the applicant or the agent on this application is an acquaintance of mine. So this would be item 20 for 175 Ridgewood Road, and I would request Member Taylor to please chair the matter while I'm away for this matter. Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? I see none. All right. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, could you please let me know if there are any matters that are being requested for deferral for the afternoon session?
Through the chair, there are no deferral requests for the afternoon session.
Thank you. And on that note, I will begin with the vetting of the agenda. Starting with item 16. Item 16 is 68 Scarborough Heights Boulevard. There are no registered speakers, so I would like to deal with this item right now. So can we please have the agent Glenn Rubinoff online? Okay. Hello, Glenn, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Glenn. Thank you. So we have your application for 68 Scarborough Heights Boulevard. Do you have any comments at this time that you wish to make to the committee?
Through the chair. Okay, thank you. We didn't have quorum, now we do. My apologies.
Oh, we didn't have a quorum. Oh, we do. Okay, perfect. Anne, are you there? Okay, thank you. All right, Glenn, sorry for that interruption. So Glenn, we have your application for minor variance. Do you have any comments at this time? And if you could confirm with me that you have had a chance to look at the conditions of urban forestry and if you have any concerns with those conditions.
No concerns. I think it's a pretty straightforward application. It's a redevelopment for a new home on the property. And I believe that it meets the four tests. The variances are minor in nature and I think reinforce the redevelopment that's going on in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for Glenn at this time? I see none. Okay, if there are no questions or comments, can I please have a motion on this application? All right, Member Taylor, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm satisfied that the requested variances meet the four tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 2 and 3.
Thank you, sir. May I have a seconder? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I second that approval with those urban forestry conditions.
Thank you, Member Gary. All in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application has been approved subject to conditions. Thank you. We now go to the next item, and that's item 17. Item 17 is for 72 Merryfield Drive, minor variance application, and there are no registered speakers. Can I please request the applicant Nafisa Zagyabadi?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Nafisa Zangiabadi. I'm the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Nafisa. So, have you had a chance to review the community planning staff report?
Yes, and we are okay with that, and we are making those changes, and we are okay with tying the decision to the requested drawings.
Okay, so the community planning recommended that variance number 1 be limited to east side yard setback, variance number 3 limited to minimum eaves setback, and then to build in substantially in accordance with the drawings. So you've read that report and you have no concerns?
Yes.
Okay, perfect,
Yes,
thank you.
correct.
And I don't believe there are any urban forestry comments. So committee members, on this note, do you have any questions for Nafisa? See none? Okay, all right. If you do not have any concerns or questions, can I please have a motion on this application? Yes, Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I move approval of this variance application, subject to the condition that they build in accordance with the site plan, south and north elevations as shown on the agenda. And there's no other conditions required.
There are actually conditions in community planning staff report, Member Macaulay. Condition 1, that variance number 1 be limited to minimum east side setback of 0.24. Variance 3 be limited to minimum eave setback, and then build in accordance with the plan. So are you recommending only one condition or all the
Okay.
conditions?
I'll accept all the conditions. I needed to be corrected. I thought the community planning recommendation that build in accordance with the specific site plan covered those variances.
It probably does not, and
But
hence-
I will rephrase that.
Okay,
Recommend approval of the variance subject to variance number 1.
just say,
Do you want me to repeat or?
you can just say that in accordance with community planning recommended conditions.
In accordance with community planning recommendations.
Okay, thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I second that motion to approve with those community planning conditions.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application has been approved, subject to conditions recommended by community planning. Thank you. We now move to our next item, item 18. And item 18, there are two speakers, but they're both applicants. Correct? Okay. So can I please have the applicant TJ? This is 4284 Lawrence Avenue East.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Yes, the other person is just a backup because we had a bit of a scheduling issue. There will only be one speaker, myself, the applicant.
Perfect. Thank you for confirming that, TJ. So TJ, we have your application before us. There are no registered speakers or neighbors to speak. At this point, I would like to confirm with you if you have read the conditions from Urban Forestry, Engineering Services, Heritage Preservation Services, and do you have any concerns with any of those recommended conditions should the committee approve the applications today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are okay with the conditions of ECS, Heritage, and Urban Forestry. And I just want to note that RNFP also provided comments, but there were no conditions. And we're happy that we worked with all of those agencies to bring this application forward with no concerns from any departments.
Perfect. Thank you for that confirmation. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Yes, Member Gary, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to make sure the applicant's aware from the Heritage report. Interesting, they're suggesting that there may need to be a stage 1 or 2 archaeological report, survey and report. Are you on side with that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are aware that Heritage has identified potential archaeological interest in this property. It's due to the screening map that Heritage have. We are okay conducting a stage 1 and 2, and this is a previously developed property, so we don't anticipate anything, but we will comply with the condition.
Thank you for that response, yes.
Thank you, TJ. Yes, it is quite interesting. It's an already disturbed site, but I guess it's on their screening, so it's a requirement. All right, so if there are no further questions, can I have a motion? And just remember, consent application, you can deal with all of them together. Just in sort of putting forward the motion, the conditions will be tied to the consent, and there will be no conditions to the minor variance applications. Okay, so I'm in your hands however you wish to proceed. You can do it separate or together. Together, yeah. Motion, please. Member Taylor, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I'll make a single motion covering the, I guess it's 3 applications, 1 consent, 2 minor variance. I think the lot sizes are quite reasonable. You know, they're only a couple of meters short of what's required by the bylaw in terms of frontage. Find all the other variances to meet the 4 tests. So with respect to the consent, I would move approval subject to the heritage planning condition, engineering and construction services conditions, and urban forestry conditions 1, 2, and 3 times 2. And then with respect to the minor variances, I guess I've already said it. I'm satisfied that the variances are minor and meet the other tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval of the variance applications as well.
Okay, thank you, Member Taylor. May I have a seconder, please? Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
I will second the approval for the consent and the 3 variances.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and all the applications are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of committee.
Okay, so then that brings us to item 19. And item 19 is 2911 Eglinton Avenue East. There are no registered speakers. May I please request David Mackay, the applicant? Hello, David.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee. David Mackay, MHBC Planning.
Okay, thank you, David. So we have your consent application before us, and there are no associated minor variance applications, as I understand. So do you have any comment at this time, David?
Yes, so this proposal is to develop a self-storage facility on an unused portion of the Home Depot parking lot area. The approval, or the development was approved conditionally at Scarborough Community Council yesterday, subject to this consent application moving forward. The one item I'd like to speak to is the ECS conditions. We are going through site plan approval, and that's in our opinion, is the appropriate place to put the widening and other related conditions rather than the consent. As you committee may or may not know, going through the peer review process is a lengthy process, and I'm concerned that it will upset the timing for the conveyance of the land from Home Depot to SmartStop, which is scheduled for September of this year. So I'd request either two items, and we were trying to get revised conditions from ECS staff to reflect this, but I'd request either these conditions not be imposed and we can deal with it through the site plan approval application, or if the committee is not comfortable with that, that these can be fulfilled through entering into a consent agreement with the City of Toronto, that these items will be taken care of at a later date, because a consent agreement is a fairly straightforward matter we can get through legal department fairly quickly. So I'm not saying we won't be doing these things, it's a timing matter for the transaction to occur, and that's our concern.
I think that's fair.
I'd be happy to answer questions that committee may have.
Yeah, so I think that's a fair concern in terms of timing, and and I do see staff giving me sort of a nod that it's okay if should the committee proceed with the approval to impose a condition to enter into a consent agreement to take care of matters related to the widening and the easements. Colin?
Through the chair, yes, and we can craft a condition, basically enter into a consent agreement, as you mentioned, for the road widening and any other associated issues to the satisfaction of the city solicitor and the director of engineering and construction services.
Okay. No, okay, perfect. That's a great solution. Yes, Member Macaulay, I see you have a question.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. I wanted to know whether the site plan approval was in front of Community Council yesterday as well. And did it make reference to the road widening?
So through you, Madam Chair, the site plan approval is delegated to staff. So the development approval, the plan showing the plans and the ultimate development was before council. The reference to the widening was referred to in the staff report, and obviously we're dealing with it through either of these means, and it sounds like the consent agreement is the way we will be dealing with it. So.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for that. And then there was some acknowledgement from Metrolinx as well, some comments, some advisory comments. It was a late submission. Have you had a chance to look at those as well? Again, those are not conditions, but just advisory comments.
Yes, and we're dealing with them specifically through the site plan application process in terms of the fencing and whatnot. Okay,
yeah, there's quite a bit there. Okay. Yes, Colin, you have a comment?
Through the chair, there is also a condition regarding it's a pretty standard condition, a revised draft R plan.
Right.
With respect, like with the correct coordinates to the satisfaction of engineering.
Could that be also put in the consent agreement? Or should that be a separate one?
I would suggest it be a separate.
Okay. All right, just so that they're separate and one doesn't affect the time.
You may want to confirm that with the applicant if they're on board with that.
So David, are you on board with that? So preparation of an R plan, separate?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did prepare a draft R plan previously, and I guess it's just the coordination of the coordinates with the survey office.
Okay.
Which is a pretty standard condition we deal with. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so we can just leave it at the condition related to the draft plan and then the reference plan, and then you can deal with it. Okay, so any other questions for David, committee members? I see none. Okay, all right. So Colin, are you going to help me draft, or are you going to draft it separately? The wording for the consent agreement?
If you give me a moment, I will.
Please.
Through the chair, we just like 2 minutes ago, we received updated engineering and construction services comments. We will, the committee members haven't, obviously the committee members haven't had a chance to look at this. We will put it on the screen so the committee members can look at it and the applicant can review it as well. It's relating to entering into consent agreement regarding the respecting the road widening, and that it has associated conditions regarding that road widening. Okay.
Okay, that would be very helpful. So,
And I think the applicant should review these as well.
yeah, so we'll put it on the screen so that we can all look at it.
Yeah, they're quite lengthy.
Okay.
Give us a moment.
So this is hot off the press. Come on. Okay, so following comments and conditions. Conditions. So enter into a consent agreement. David, you can see the screen, right?
Sorry, thank you. I was somehow muted, so yes, I can see the screen.
Okay, so we have,
So it looks like the condition one is that the agreement, so I'm satisfied with that.
Maybe we could proceed to each condition so we could scroll down.
yeah, so condition 2 is widening of highways that abut on the land, and that said consent agreement will include the obligations of the owner. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can read it. Yeah, it speaks to the
Yes.
widening. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm glad they've recognized the the existing buildings in the way, so we're
Okay.
going around that one. So that was a concern that we were trying to resolve. So glad that they've noted that.
Okay, and then 2.2, prior to conveyance, the owner shall provide confirmation from OLS. That's related to the
Yep.
draft plan, reference plan, and then 2.3 is the draft reference plan. I think that's fairly standard. 2.4, conveyance
Yep,
of the
and then
land to the city to pay all costs, site assessment.
Yeah, these seem to be the regular conditions we would normally deal with in terms of the environmental condition of the lands to be conveyed to the city. So 2.5, 6, and 7 are acceptable,
Okay,
as shown on the screen. 2.8 is the same type of condition, and 2.9 as well. So
okay. All right, I think they're fairly
yeah,
straightforward.
2.10 again. A number of them are straightforward. Yes.
Okay, and then the requirement of the RSC for the conveyed lands. Yep,
Yes, and then 2.12. Yeah.
okay, all right.
And then number 3 is the other is part of the consent request that we've made it for both the creation of the lot and the easement. So
And the easements.
that number 3 is fine. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think we've gone through all the conditions, and should the committee proceed with approving the application and imposing these conditions, the applicant has confirmed that he has no concerns with the conditions from ECS. Okay, all right, thank you very much, staff, for this. And then we have the other conditions as well, right? The urban forestry, and I think that's about it. Okay.
Urban
I
forestry
thought,
didn't have any
the urban
conditions.
forestry didn't have any.
Oh, they did not have, it was a memo, okay.
Correct. So just urban forest, Metrolinx and the updated ECS conditions.
So just clarify, are Metrolinx conditions or are they just comments?
Metrolinx is a condition, it's acknowledgement. That acknowledgement from the applicant is required. So
Okay,
the committee may wish to impose that as a condition.
the acknowledgement. Which, and as Dave mentioned, they are all going to be addressed through or being addressed through the site plan process as well, like installation of fences and whatnot, okay. All right, so committee members, we have the new conditions that have come in, and we've reviewed those. They're fairly straightforward, and the applicant's in agreement. And then we have the Metrolinx condition for acknowledgement as proposed. Are we prepared to move forward with a motion? Can I have the screen back, please? Oh, it's taking some time, okay. All right, committee members, may I have a motion, please? Yes, Member Taylor, please go ahead.
Yes, it's a very reasonable consent proposal. I move approval of it, subject to engineering and construction services, their current conditions that we just reviewed, Metrolinx condition, and I believe there's a transportation services condition as well.
There's transportation as well?
Through the chair, the transportation services conditions feed into the ECS conditions. And ECS is the one window commenting
Okay.
division. So there's no need to include that as a condition.
Okay, then I withdraw that. I'll just leave it at engineering and construction services and Metrolinx.
Okay, thank you, Member Taylor. May I have a seconder, please? Yes, Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
I will second that motion for approval.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? The motion's carried and the application has been approved subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for staff for helping us through those conditions. Very much appreciated. Have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you. We now move to item 20. I do have a conflict of it on it. However, there is a long list of speakers on it, so this matter will be held for discussion. And at that point, I will move myself away from this when the deliberations occur. So item 20 is held for further discussion. And just for everyone, item 20 is 175 Ridgewood Road. And item 21 is 33 Murray Avenue. Murray, this also has registered speakers on it, so this will be held as well. And we will come back to it. So that brings us to dealing with all the matters in the afternoon session. So again, recapping the ones that have been held. It's only two at this time. So item 20 and item 21 are being held. And on this note, I'm going to move away to allow Member Taylor to chair the item 20 on my behalf, as I have a conflict, so I will move away.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Don Taylor. I'll be acting as chair for this item, number 20, which is for 175 Ridgewood Road. There are three applications to consider. Firstly, a consent to sever the lot into two 15.293 meter frontage lots, each to accommodate a new single-family detached dwelling. And then we have variance applications for each of the proposed lots. And there are 5 variances requested for floor area, front yard setback, lot frontage, height of building, and height of main pedestrian entrance. We have conditions of approval from urban forestry, engineering and construction services, as well as an RNFP advisory. We have 8 registered speakers, all of whom live on Ridgewood Road, and we'll be listening to the concerns and comments of those folks momentarily. But firstly, we would like to hear from, I suppose, is it the applicant, Nadeem Irfan, are you presenting?
My name is Nadeem Irfan, NIA Architects, 10 Milner Business Court, Suite 710, Scarborough, Ontario, M1B 3C6.
Okay, thanks, Nadeem. Could you make a presentation on what you're proposing here?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This application was started initially in 2021 at the design stage, and we submitted the committee application exactly a year before. Since then, we have extensively worked with the city planning staff, city engineering staff, and urban forestry. All of the staff members are in support of the application. All the data was shared with the community planning staff, and they, on record, mentioned that they will not write a negative report, which means it's a support. Engineering staff had some concerns back and forth. We resolved those comments, and then we have a support of the engineering staff. Similar to that, arborist report was prepared, and urban forestry has a condition 2 and 3, which is the injury to the tree, and basically two conditions, number 2 and number 3. The number 2 is to injury to the tree, private tree, and number 3 is to plant a new tree. So we have a 5 variances. Most of the variances are technical, which is the height and the first floor elevation and all that. It is because there is a great difference of 1 meter from the edge of the street to the actual property where the new houses are located, or even the existing houses are located. Our established grade is almost a meter lower than the actual floor elevation or the garage slab elevation, because of the engineering requirements of 2% of a slope we require to have a positive drainage towards the street. We have a variance number 1, which is the FSI. We are allowed to have a 0.4 and we have a 0.41. It's a very, very minor in nature. Front yard is again because of we have a ravine line at the back. Whether we will build one house, whether we build 2 houses, whether we build multiplex, it will be the similar challenge to this site. And we are maintaining the front yard setback, which is aligned with the neighbor on the north. Even after that, we have approximately 15-meter buffer from the street to the actual house. So we have done some studies, we have done some exhibits, we have submitted to the committee. We believe these variances are very minor in nature. Every of these house occupying 2 lots, these are actually 2 existing lots on the street. There are several properties which are existing and occupying 2 lots. So we have done study, we have exhibit. We fairly believe that there are lots which are ranging from 15 meter to 16 meter to 17 meter to 18 meter to 31 meter. So if this was considered for approval, there will not be any negative impact on any of the neighbors. The streetscape will be maintained. There are houses which are located on the 50-foot lots. I don't think it will be anything unusual by building 2 houses here. So I believe these applications meet the 4 test, and we request for the consideration for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Irfan.
I'd like to mention we have the owner here as a speaker too. And I know we have various other speakers, and I'll be getting an opportunity to rebut most of the comments. So I appreciate if the homeowner can be heard at the end of the speakers list. That way he can rebut or answer most of the neighbors' questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to ask for a ruling from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer in that my understanding was we limit speakers to 1 per address. Am I wrong about that, or is there anything wrong with Mr. Irfan's request?
Through the chair, if either the applicant or the owner can provide a rebuttal, but not both. So I think the applicant will need to make that decision. You may want to ask the applicant.
Okay. So, Mr. Irfan, would you prefer to have the owner step in to handle the rebuttal at the end, or?
I would be making the rebuttal.
You will handle the rebuttal?
Yes.
Well, I think that I'm going to deny an opportunity for Mr. Said to speak then, because you've already taken that position in this application.
Through the chair, if I may.
Telling me that you will handle the rebuttal.
Through the chair, if I may, the owner, I guess the applicant has made it very clear that he will handle the rebuttal. However, the owner has submitted a speaker's request. You may want to ask the applicant if the owner wishes to speak, and if that's the case, the owner could speak right now, and they would have 5 minutes.
He doesn't have to wait until the neighbors have spoken?
No.
I think, Mr. Irfan, if I heard you right, you said the owner would be agreeable to speaking last?
Exactly, sir.
before your rebuttal?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll handle it that way then.
thank you.
Now, sir, just, we've got 8 registered speakers here. I'm going to ask you to listen very carefully because you're going to have to address potentially a number of concerns and questions in your rebuttal.
Thank you.
Perhaps you don't need that advice from me, but I'm giving it to you anyway.
Thank you.
Through
So we will
the
now
chair,
move to
I just want to clarify, if the owner wants to speak, they should be speaking now. Because it's not, because the owner does not get a rebuttal. It's either the applicant or the owner gets a rebuttal. If the applicant has made it clear they're going to do the rebuttal, the owner should be speaking right now, proceeding like after the,
Okay, then.
after the applicant.
Okay, then, we'll hear from Shuja Saeed, then the owner. You're on the air.
Mr. Chair, before we go to the owner, I want a clarification from the applicant on one of the variances.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I understand there's 5 variances, but the front yard setback variance is for 7.54 meters versus 9 meters. And then the lot frontage is for 18 meters. Sorry, the lot frontage is for 15 meters rather than the required 18 meters. It's just the lot frontage and the front yard setback that I may have missed hearing him address those.
Okay, then,
Can you confirm the front yard setback is that he's asking for is 7.54 meters?
okay, Mr. Irfan, could you address those 2 questions on those 2 variances?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are requesting a 7.5 meter front yard setback on one of the house, and the other house is 7.54, whereas required is 9 meter.
Thank you.
And the reason is we have a ravine line at the back, and we wanted to do not go back too much into the ravine. And by asking 7.5 meter, we have more than ample space from the street edge, which is approximately 14.59 meter. And we are aligned with the neighbors on the north side, which has, I believe, 7.32 meter front yard setback, existing setback. Now, coming to the lot frontage, yes, we understand the bylaw requirement is 18 meter, and we have a 15.2 meter existing. So we will be requesting, or we are requesting a lot front variance. But we also have a very excessive lot area, whereas the lot area required is 696 and we have 935. So the lots have ample space for amenity space at the backyard. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted clarification. I may have missed those 2 variances. I have them written in front of me in the notice.
Okay, you're okay to proceed, Ms. McCauley?
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. McKay, do you have any questions?
Yes, one question for the applicant, thanks. It relates to the consent to sever, and really my question really goes to sewage. It's my understanding, as I read this, that you would be developing with a private septic tank, but you're proposing that there be a consent agreement and that sort of down the road, when full municipal services might be available, that you would join that, you would tap in. So just on that issue, septic tank first.
That's what was agreed upon with the engineering services, and they support that.
Okay, thanks. I'll have to take a look at that. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll proceed now with the registered speakers, calling firstly on the owner of 175 Ridgewood Road, Shuja Saeed. Hello?
Shuja, you have been unmuted.
Is Shuja available, or can you
Through,
hear us, Shuja?
Mr. Saeed, can you please unmute yourself? You're unmuted on our end. We control the muting. So you're unmuted on our end. Please do not control it from your end. You're unmuted right now. Please go ahead and speak, Mr. Saeed.
I would like to place Mr. Said at the end of the speakers list in fairness to everyone else. And in the meantime, I would ask Mr. Irfan to communicate with Mr. Said and get him set up with the technology.
Through the chair, I agree with you. When he's available, then he could be the next speaker after, when he becomes available.
Sure, whenever he's available, we'll plug him in. Okay, so now I'll call on Sue or Peter Calabrese from 224 Ridgewood Road.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. I live at my wife and I live at 224 Ridgewood Road. We've lived here since 2014. My major objection to this application has to do with the severing of the lot and the lot sizes. The applicant seems to try to characterize the neighborhood as having several other 50-foot lots. That's not a true characterization. There are a few of the legacy lots that are 50 feet. However, the vast majority of lots are 60 feet or larger. In fact, I would say that there's double the number of lots that are 100-foot lots than what's a 50-foot lot. And allowing this severance and allowing the 50-foot lots on Ridgewood Road would completely change the character of the road. And with all the other lots that are available here that could be used for development, I'd see in a short period of time, we would see several new houses added to the neighborhood, which really would not fit the character of the neighborhood. I think this neighborhood is very unique in the area. When the applicant mentioned some of the other developments that are going on in the area that are similar to what he's proposing, those developments are not on Ridgewood Road. They're on adjacent roads and are not part of this portion of Ridgewood Road. So I think to keep the community, to keep the personality of the community, the way it's developed over the years, I think allowing severance of the 100-foot properties would do more damage to the neighborhood. And for that reason, I'm objecting to the severance. The other variances, I also object to the variance of the setback from the road. I think it just causes, it looks more congested when you have houses closer to the roads. There's less room for parking vehicles. And if the city ever decides to rebuild the road and introduce sidewalks, then there's going to be very little room for parking in front of these houses, and it'll just add to the congestion on the street that we already see. So those are my main objections. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you very much, Mr. Calabrese. I'll open it up to any questions that either of our panelists may have of you. None? Okay. Before we move on, I just want to remind everyone about something the chair mentioned at the start of this session. Please pay attention to what people are saying, because we do not need to hear repeat comments. So if Calabrese mentioned lot sizes and front yard setback. We do not need to hear about that again unless you have a unique or different perspective on what that issue is.
He's talking
Just-
about the other people who are going to speak, so hopefully.
That's right.
Okay,
Thanks, Vicky.
I do feel,
Okay.
yeah.
Made my points.
Why is it silenced again?
am I hearing from Adrian or Pamela Petian at this time, or there's some, I'm hearing some talking going on. Is that Adrian and Pamela or someone else? Okay. I'll now call on Adrian or Pamela Petian from 194 Ridgewood Road.
Very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Appreciate your time. My name is Adrian Petian, and my wife and I have lived on 194 Ridgewood for 21 years. We originally moved into this area because nice large lots, not cramped, a feeling of being close to nature, rural, and away from the heavy density one experiences in new subdivisions. You know, we like the idea that most of the homes were on 100-foot lots. When we got speaking to the neighbors, in fact, our lot was one of the first, or one of the initial lots that were severed. It's a 60 or 65-foot lot. I don't remember when I spoke to the gentleman who owned the land. He informed me that this region and Ridgewood was developed and land was bought under the Veterans Act by acreage. They had hazelnut trees, and they actually had to bring water up from a pipe up with a pump up from the lake. And so it was very much a rural street with large mature trees that have developed over many, many years, probably 50 years. So not to repeat ourselves, I think, you know, a severance of a lot of time of our purchase, it was not and would not be conducive with the lifestyle investment we've made on Ridgewood. We've lived here for a long, long time, invested a lot of effort, not only on improving the house, but also improving the property. You're making it an area where you can feel good to walk through, and it's very much a nice, in keeping with the rural setting. And I suspect most of the residents would feel the same way, that this is not something they want to see where you start popping new homes up there. The concern I have is also on the height, one of the variances on the height of the property. That will be standing out like a proverbial sore thumb. You'll have most of the homes, many of the homes are bungalows. There are some two-story homes, but now you start having these larger homes that overlook others on the property. They're not in staying balanced with the existing structures and with the original home footprint offered. Density, square footage of the homes, you know, our understanding, there are two 4,100 plus square foot homes being built on these smaller lots. And quite frankly, just one of those homes is equivalent to the largest homes on 100-foot frontages. And as the previous resident on the street noted, most of the homes are 100-foot lots. There are quite a few. So there's a concern there with this variance. I think the city may consider this as a minor variance. Certainly we living on the street don't consider it as a minor variance. And I think we'll be looking at, if this is allowed, there'll be some other homes with these 100-foot frontages that have maybe older homes with lower values. It's going to open the floodgates to allow development. We'll have years of development on this, what is a very nice street to walk our dogs, meet neighbors, talk on the street. We don't have sidewalks, we're on septic tanks, it seems to work fine. We suspect that will rapidly change once this is opened up. I think the aesthetics of the streetscape will change. And I don't see anybody who is going to, on the street, who said that's good for the street. I think what will happen and what should happen is, you know, the development of the street should be based on the standards set forth by the historical precedents and preserved by the continued turnover of homes that buyers that see the value in this preservation and wish to be part of it. You know, we came, as I said, we came to this area to experience and relish the open spaces, the nature, the bounty of tree canopy, and respect for the area and the people that came here over many years to make this a unique and most loved part of our city. It's not for everybody, but it should be for those who will continue to be exemplary custodians of the land. Please keep in mind, we're closely connected to the largest national park in Canada. We're one street away, and we should be setting examples of preservation of the land instead of having it up for grabs to be developed and split up. Therefore, my wife and I are outrightly opposed to the severing of any residential properties on Ridgewood. So at this time, I would like to thank the Committee of Adjustments for the opportunity to speak to the reasons why my wife and I oppose this application to severance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petian. Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay, do either of you have any questions of Mr. Petian? Okay, then we'll move along. Our next speaker is John Duco from 127 Ridgewood Road. Mr. Duco.
Through the chair, we have contacted John, and John confirmed he's unavailable to attend the hearing.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move along to Dave Muir at 119 Ridgewood Road. Mr. Muir, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay.
So I was listening to Mr. Irfan's presentation to the Committee of Adjustment, and I've read Mr. Irfan's brief, and I'm not sure what street he's describing, but it certainly isn't the street where I live on Ridgewood Road. I've been a resident on Ridgewood Road for the past 32 years, and the opposition to the applicant's proposal is overwhelmingly negative by the residents on Ridgewood Road. This is witnessed by the almost 50 letters of opposition currently posted on the AIC website. Our ward councillor, Jennifer McKelvey, has submitted her letter to the Committee of Adjustment in support of the residents' concerns. Clearly, the residents do not view this application as a minor variance. We see it as a gateway for unwelcome change to the streetscape that is better suited to other areas of the city that have not yet been developed or require infill housing. Ridgewood has already been developed in accordance with existing city bylaws. It requires no infill housing since there are no more vacant lots available on the street and haven't been for over 20 years. The residents view this application as a gateway event, and they'll bring unwanted redevelopment to the street, redevelopment that renders houses that are much larger than what is currently on the street that is on a lot that would be half the size. Approval of this application will not only devastate the existing harmony to the streetscape, it has managed to keep its quaint integrity despite decades of long-term ownership and extremely low property turnover. It is also not in keeping with what the vast majority of the residents expect for the street. Ridgewood Road does not need to grow in the eyes of the resident. It requires a fundamental preservation in the regards to the lot frontages. That is why there has not been a formal application for such a severance on Ridgewood Road in 70 years, despite what you hear now. That was the height of the development on Ridgewood Road, with setback standards on what fortunately buyers expect today, seeking a property on the street. If the norm had been 50-foot lots on the street, there'd be many more. But now, as it is, there is only 5 out of approximately less than 95 houses that are on the street. This is why even today, the standard lot frontage on Ridgewood remains at 100 feet. I trust that the committee will consider mine and the residents' vehement opposition to the applicant for severance and summarily deny the application. And in closing, I'd like to bring concentration to the actual severance, since the severance is what the residents and myself oppose vehemently. The other 5 minor variances that are applied for, we view as a moot point, considering that it all hinges on the application for severance. I will now gladly field questions if it pleases the committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duco. I'm going to ask you a question and then I'm going to
It's
turn
Mr. Muir.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Muir. Mr. Duco wasn't available.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
question, Mr. Muir, a question for you. And this is hypothetical and it's not a leading question. I'm just interested in your opinion on this. This application proposes, as you know, 2 4,100 square foot homes. Would you prefer leaving the lot the way it is with an 8,200 square foot house on it? Would that be more in keeping with the neighborhood?
If the house proposed is in keeping with the existing bylaws, like many of them have been done, then I would not be opposed to it.
Yeah, well, an 8,200 foot home would be permitted under the bylaw.
Well, if an 8,200 square foot home under the bylaw would be permitted, then that's what would be permitted, because it would retain the frontage. It would still have to conform to all of the other bylaws that are set forth.
That's what I thought you'd say, but I wanted you to say it. Thank you.
You can't eat your cake and have it too. The laws are set there for a reason. Many new homes have been built on Ridgewood over the past 10 years. Many of them have been able to conform within the existing bylaws without the need for minor variances at the committee. We don't view this lot severance as a minor variance, and consequently all the other variances being asked for are not minor as follows.
Yep. Okay, any questions from Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay of Mr. Muir? Yes, Mr. McKay.
Yes, sir. So you agree in terms of the consent to sever and the creation of new lots, the lot frontages would be over 50 meters. So sort of roughly translated into imperial, it's really 50-foot lots that would be created. Isn't that right?
Are you asking me the question?
Yeah, I am, right?
Yeah, the proposal sets forth that the lot is an imperial 100 feet. You want to sever it into 2 50-foot lots.
Got it, right?
There are only currently 5 50-foot lots on the street, and they were severed over 70 years ago as part of the height of the development on Ridgewood Road.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I think you'd have to admit, we don't see a lot of applications to sever to create 50-foot lots in Toronto or even the GTA. Just throwing that out there. I mean, as a creation of a new lot, a 50-foot frontage, would seem to be generous.
Well, with all due respect, if you saw the streetscape on Ridgewood Road, it would become immediately apparent that a 50-foot lot stands out like a sore thumb. All of the lots on Ridgewood Road, and there are approximately 95 houses on Ridgewood Road from one end to the other that are actual addresses on Ridgewood Road. The lots that are 100 feet span approximately a mile stretch, or just under a mile stretch on the top of the ridge. Those are all of the houses that were part of the development during the 1950s, and all of those lots consisted of 100-foot frontages under one title. The architect, Mr. Irfan, may say that there's 2 lots there. There are 2 parcels of land marked as 50 feet, but they are all 100-foot lots under one title. So anyone that experiences a trip to Ridgewood Road and experiences the treescape will see immediately that the smallest tree on Ridgewood Road dwarfs the largest tree down in the subdivision. We've been able to maintain that through good stewardship of property owners and the type of buyer that Ridgewood Road attracts up here. We look at the severance as the initial gateway. This is the actual gateway for redevelopment of Ridgewood Road, not development, not infill. There's no infill available because there's no more vacant lots. It hasn't been since the early 2000s. And there is no development because the street has already been developed in accordance with the development boom 70 years ago.
Okay, I hear your position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muir. And thank you for the question, Mr. McKay. Just like to check in with staff on the status of Mr. Saeed, the owner. Is he in a position to speak to us now, or do we carry on?
We can go to the owner. He has called in.
I'll keep going down the list.
We can speak to the owner. He signed in.
Okay, then. We'll just take a break for the neighbors and invite Mr. Saeed, the owner, to speak. Sir, you have 5 minutes. Are you there, Mr. Saeed?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Before we apply, before I spoke to my architect, I personally have surveyed that there are several 50-foot lots, there are several 60-foot lots, there are several 70-foot, foot lots. Personally, we are not builders. I am not a builder, none whatsoever. I am not a contractor. I am not here to develop a land. I'm not a property developer. That is not my objective at all. I never developed a land in my life. I am a lifetime hiker myself, just adjacent to our street. We regularly enjoy and walk on the shores of Lake Ontario. We do canoe on the regular basis. We are green and love green space. We love animals, and we enjoy the street. Before I could talk to some of my neighbors, they already have a personal information about me, which I was not aware of it. A massive campaign was launched. The day I was putting the signs, a lady came upon me and she looked. I believe in open dialogue. I tried to converse with my neighbors. I even distributed some, letters to them that what I am. And some of the neighbors even told me that we understand your application, but we cannot go against the street. I'm sorry. So they, initially agreed to help me, but they were scared to do that. And during the COVID, my family has suffered a lot. I was infected twice. Well, my immune system was very good. I came out. Then the house got burned. So psychologically, we were devastated. So some of them even said we have abandoned the property. We did not abandon the property. There was some issues to be resolved, and we will move back within a couple of months. So I am not here to change the fundamental character of the street. I have no intention at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Saeed. Any questions of Mr. Saeed from Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay? Ms. McCauley.
Yes, just a quick question to Mr. Saeed. I appreciate that you're a person that recognizes the green space and are interested in hiking. And you've gone on to say you are not a developer of land. What is your purpose of buying this property?
Okay, first of all, we bought this in 2015 for my family because my family loves loves the street. My spouse loved it, and I love it. Now we are separated because of the family, because I have children. I just don't want to leave them a legacy of behind me they fight. I don't want that. This is a personal issue. This is just a family issue. I have a property across my street. There was a fight, literally fight, after the death of the parents. I don't want that. We just don't want that.
All right. That didn't provide me with much clarification if you don't want to the land, but that's fine. We'll continue to consider the application in front of us.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. McKay, any questions?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Then we'll proceed on our list of neighbors on the speaking list. And I invite Kyle Garassi from 280 Ridgewood Road to join us and make his comments known. Mr. Garassi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Couldn't be better. You?
Wonderful. Thanks.
Good.
I'm calling. I'm going to try not to rehash myself because I feel like the neighbors have done a pretty good job. I'm coming from a place of a brand new build just down the road at 280 Ridgewood. And I've also gone through this committee myself. So that's where I'm coming from today. We had an easement done on the height of our house due to the slope of the street, just like our proposed new neighbor's talking about. The reality is it was a slope of a vaulted roof that we required an easement on. This is not an easement for a slope or aesthetic look. This is to raise the height of a flattened roof house, which is not on our street to any degree. So this is raising a giant flat square roof that does not fit in with the aesthetics. Or, due to the bylaw, that's just what the bylaw says. I'm not going to beat that up. I'm not going to beat up any of the points that have already been made. But when you look at the parking spots out front of his house that he's proposing, modern day Escalade will barely fit out there. And I'm guessing with houses like that, that's what these guys are driving. And the reality is, any of those 50, 60, 70-foot lots that he actually included in his proposal have a side carport on their property that move the driveway and the cars back away from the road. So with no sidewalks and the snow plows on our street, those cars will be sticking out. Those are driveways like no other house on our whole street. So my neighbors have already rehashed everything. I just think bringing those houses that close to the road with no ulterior parking like the smaller lots do have does take away the aesthetic and safety of the street. I haven't had time to incredibly research it. I've got 2 young kids at home and I have to pay for my house as well. So I don't have time to research this left and right. But judging from my experience with my bylaw and my build, these are way, when they use my house as an example of easements, these are just outrageous demands. They're not even close to what I was asking for in mine. So that's where I come from experience, and I don't want to beat anything up, so you guys go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay, do either of you have any questions for Mr. Grassi? Okay, there being none, we will proceed to hear from Kevin Irandu, 145 Ridgewood Road. Kevin, did I pronounce your surname correctly?
No, but that's okay. It's Irandu.
Irandu, okay. I'm gonna call you.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
gonna call you Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, no problem.
Okay.
A bit of background on me. I live at 145 Ridgewood Road. I'm a commercial real estate broker that actually helps developers buy land, build buildings, build homes, low-rise, multifamily in that range. So I do have some familiarity with this type of development and going through the application process. And the biggest question a lot of these developers ask themselves when they're going through minor variances is, does this zoning variance help the greater good? Does it improve the overall streetscape? Am I going for, an extra few stories with perhaps an additional common area with garden and garden beds to accommodate that extra story? So I think when you look at this development that kind of impacts and changes the streetscape drastically, why do you want to sever into two lots? It's in this case, it seems like it's more of a greed and money grab versus like trying to keep in with the aesthetics of the area and do well that way. One of the houses that was photographed as the 50-foot lots, I actually have a 50-foot lot. I bought it in 2021. We have no intention of trying to redevelop it and build a huge story, and I think that's what the claim was in the report. So that makes you also question and want to, ask, what other things in this report are accurate if they're claiming that these 50-foot lots, we're going to undergo this development. That's not the case at all. We've renovated it. We do have a carport, just like the previous gentleman said. So it's a very unique street, and we want to keep it that way. And to the gentleman that asked about the severance into two lots and how 50-foot lots are generous, I think that's a tough statement to make because every street is different. Like our street is barely wide enough to fit two cars side by side driving by. It is a walker street. I have friends and family that are in this neighborhood that have walked this street for 20 plus years. Ridgewood and Rouge Hills Drive, they're the oldest streets in the neighborhood. Between our two streets, there used to be a golf course. So it's a very different type of landscape. And like one of the people said, you have to visit the street to kind of understand where we're coming from. To build two lots with that type of setback, it creates like a bad look, and you kind of lose the quality that people love about it and why people choose to come and walk on our street from the subdivision down below. So I agree with everything everybody else said. I don't want to rehash a lot of this stuff, but I just want to offer that perspective and say, what are we doing here? Like my neighbor just built an 8,000 square foot for his family, and it's great. They're beautiful home, great street, long, wide bungalow with a two-story component. That's what we want to see on this street, and why people walk on our street to go for walks on our street. So thank you very much for everybody, and any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Just before you go, Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay, any questions of Kevin? Okay, then we will proceed to hear from Amar Sukram, 144 Ridgewood Road. Mr. Sukram, are you with us?
Through the chair, we are unable to get in contact with Amar Sukram.
Okay. Okay, moving on then to David Pino and Doris Conte, 178 Ridgewood Road. Are David or Doris with us?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for, I've listened to all my neighbors. I guess I kind of trash everything I wrote. So the first thing I would like to kindly address the chair with is we all heard from Mr. Irfan, the operative word that was really in the back of our minds. Fearfully, the operative word that he uttered was multiplex. So whether this severance was going to house a single, semi, or multiplex unit, Mr. Irfan has declared that all has been done according as it should be. I submitted letter of objection number 13. In that letter, I have a hyperlink to Google Maps, Google Earth Maps. All it takes is for anyone to look at that aerial view of Google Maps and really just survey the area and see without a doubt, first of all, that we are truly attached to the largest urban national forest in Canada. Secondly, to see that this severance would completely create an imbalance within the streetscape. I would also like to propose that this streetscape is not just a two-dimensional rendering on an architect's plan. The numbers that have been submitted, the measurements that have been submitted are inaccurate. There is misinformation. And I am completely, vehemently opposed to this severance. We have lived on this street for 14 years, and it does not, the point on us is not lost that we are two 50-foot parcels of land in a 100-foot lot. I know several developers, and the moment I bought here, their utterance to me was, well, we can just apply for subdivision. I said, be gone, Satan. I will not ever do that. I appreciate the openness. This is what has brought this neighborhood together. It is the preservation of the natural beauty and the openness of this neighborhood, as has been spoken to. 2 cars can barely pass on this street, and yet walkers are abundant, and we drive under that 40-kilometer limit in respect. And we respect our neighborhood, and we want to keep it as such. We are completely, we feel blessed that we live in this community, and we do see the applicant's proposal with all due respect to wanting to leave a legacy. My husband and I have 6 children. I guess they're going to be duking it out for this one, because I have no intention of ever subdividing this, and I have every intention of leaving this for them. The other point I wish to make is that we do welcome the applicant to build whatever single residential home will fit on the property, in keeping with his continued value of maintaining this home for his family. I will just ask the committee, if the severance were to be granted, and what if the owner decided all of a sudden to sell 2 lots on this street? There is nothing stopping him. There is no recourse. And once that has been put into place, that change is irreparably part of our landscape, and it does not fit, it is not desirable, and it is not viable. As I said, I've completely scrapped everything I wrote about, but I implore the committee really to listen to the sentiments of the majority of the families here that have created a life for their families. You know, maybe we are hiding from the city, and we are blessed to do so in this part of the city. We encourage all to come and visit and see what it is about Ridgewood Road that really makes this a most magical place that should be respected and preserved, rather than cut up and just left for new development. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conde, and I'm sure what you just said from your heart was probably a lot better than your prepared notes, so no need to apologize for that. Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay, do you have any questions of Ms. Conte? Okay, then, I guess we're...
Through the chair, we do have one more registered speaker who was added to the list. His name is Stan Calandra.
Calandra?
Calandra, Stan Calandra.
Stan Calandra?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Calandra, could you give us your address, please?
Let me mute him 1 second.
I think you unmuted Kevin.
Stan, you have been unmuted.
Okay, hello, do you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Calandra?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you please tell us your address, please?
213 Ridgewood Road.
Okay, thank you. So what would you like to tell us?
Well, apart from the severing of the lot, my main concern is going to be it's septic related, basically. What we have here is we've got 2 homes that are 4,000 square foot plus, and each home has 5 bathrooms, 1 2-piece washroom, 2 laundry rooms, and a kitchen. So in total, we've got 10 bathrooms, 2 washrooms, 4 laundry rooms, and 2 kitchens. Now, my home is 1,500 square feet, and I've got 2 washrooms, a kitchen, and a laundry room. My septic field is 35 feet wide by 55 foot in length. Now, my question is, it's, looking at Google Maps and looking at his backyard, in my opinion, it would be next to impossible to put a septic field in that backyard. There's just not enough space. You've got a sloping ridge that suffers from erosion basically every year. There's no way that, any septic system can handle that much. And never mind how many people are going to be moving in here. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a septic expert, but 2 weeks ago, I had John Guzzi in the neighborhood. He's the owner of Aquamatics Septic Systems. He was doing some work at one of my neighbors. He was doing some repair work. So I spoke with him and explained to him what they wanted to do at 175 Ridgewood. Now, he said it may not even be possible to put a septic system in his backyard with 1 home, but he said 2 homes of that size would be impossible. The lot is the backyard is much too small. It's not level. You got erosion that takes place. It's on a slopey ridge, and the soil is not adequate. And as for municipal services, I guess he's talking about tying into the sewers. That could be 10, 15, 20 years away. We don't know how long that's going to be. I mean, in the meantime, what do? It's basically a disaster waiting to happen. You're going to have 2 homes that size with that amount of water. It can't be done. 1 home, like I said, according to Mr. Guzzi, would be stretching it, but I'm sure it could be done. But 2 homes is an impossibility, and I don't see that anywhere in any of the application. Has any work been done to address this matter? I don't think it has.
Well, that will be up to Mr. Fan to address in his rebuttal. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wish to say or add? Or
no, you know what? My neighbors have basically said everything that was on my mind. So I'll leave it at that, and I'd like to hear the rebuttal about what he has to say about this.
Yeah. Okay. So, any questions, Ms. McCauley or Mr. McKay, for Mr. Calandra before we move on? Okay, so I believe we've now heard from all of the registered speakers. So we now move back to Mr. Irfan for a rebuttal. You obviously have to address the significant unanimous concern about lot sizes. Your 50-foot lots in this area of predominantly 100-foot lots. And some other issues were raised. Mr. Calandra asked about the septic tanks. The issues were also raised about height, size of the houses. Anyway, I'm sure you've heard it all, and now it's up to you, sir, to rebut what you've heard for our consideration. So, Mr. Irfan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We definitely respect the neighbors' concerns. We are part of the community. My landlord, my client is a part of the community. And I think he was not clear about answering member Ann McCauley. He wants to build the 2 houses for his family. He's not there to sell it. So now I would need staff's help to put on some charts and some exhibits so I can explain where we are coming from. I need the survey to be brought on the screen to show to the committee. Just zoom in a little bit. Property survey. This is the reference plan. So I wanted to zoom in at the back of the property where it says lot 98 and lot 99. These are 2 existing lots. And if we were to see other houses, which I will ask the staff to bring in exhibit 2D on the screen. all of these lots, all of these properties are occupying 2 lots. We have the data from the geo warehouse that also says these are lot, such and such, lot such and such, and they are different sizes. Some are, 50 plus 50, 100, some are 50, some are 60. So I wanted to bring in that exhibit 2D. It's the very old draft plan, not this one. It was a part of our submission.
Through the chair, can the applicant confirm which, we're going to go on the application information center. Can you please identify specifically what material you're referring to?
It says exhibit 2D. It says exhibit 2D.
Is that what it's called on the AIC?
It's on, even on the file name is exhibit 2D, and on the drawing it says exhibit 2D. It's part of our supporting material that was submitted June, I believe, 21st. While we are waiting for that, I wanted to bring it to committee's attention. All of these lots are underutilized. Their FSIs are probably 0.2 or less than even 0.2. The bylaw, allows 0.4. We are wasting so much of, resources here. Here, staff has looked at all these variances. They have not commented. They have not objected. They have not written a report. We, through that Exhibit D, will demonstrate that in 1984, there was a plan submitted to the land registry that shows each of these lots are actually 15 meter. They were created for a reason. The reason is future. When future comes, if somebody wants to actually divide these lots, they will have an opportunity to equally divide them. All of these 100-foot lots or properties are occupying 2 lots. So that time the planning staff probably had a vision to create 2 lots whenever somebody wants to redevelop. If there was no intent, that's precisely. So if we were to look at on the top right corner of this map, it shows a registered R plan, and it shows that all of these lots at the bottom of the drawing, these are 50 foot, lot 98, lot 99, lot 100, lot 101. All of these lots were probably created at that time with the intention for future, keeping in mind that we can divide in equal, sizes and we'll have a proper streetscape. All of these lots are underutilized. Now, I would like to bring in the exhibit 1, which will show the lot study. That's right. So we have measured, it may be a little bit shy of, the actual numbers, but they're pretty close. So you can see that almost 7 lots are 50 footer. There are so many of 60 footer. There are so many of 70 footer. There are so many of 100 footer. Please note that those 100 footer are actually 2 lots, which through that exhibit 2D shows that the staff had the intention to create these equal lots if it happens in the future. So it will be a harmonious, street pattern or the lot pattern. Now I want to bring it to exhibit 2C, which shows the geo warehouse data that all of these lots have a varying, sizes. The first one, if the page 2 of that 2D, sorry, 2C, page 2 of the 2C. It shows those, yes, page 2. Next page, please. So these lots read that description, at the bottom. part lot, 100, part lot 101. These are actually two lots. Look at the description and the sizes. They show, 50 into 200 plus 50 into, 200. So the staff had the vision at that time. I don't know what happened when the bylaw was changed. There were a couple of lots which actually have a basically 15-meter designation on the bylaw, but they were carved out from this new bylaw, requirement of this 18, meter instead of 15-meter. Now, we're going to look at these variances one by one. We have seen that even if we build one lot, there's a problem with the grade. It's a 1 meter lower. The first floor, even if we do not provide a lot of these steps outside, we'll still have a problem. Even if we build a single story, there is a problem. So all these variances are technical and incidental. We have spoken to our client. If this, FSI, if this front yard setback is a problem, he's willing to negotiate. He's willing to delete these to reduce the footprint of the house. Instead of like 0.4, he can be building 0.35. So here is an opportunity to reduce the footprint. Now, going to other comments such as, septic.
Through the chair, the applicant, we did factor in an extra 2 minutes time for because we were pulling up the materials for the applicant, but the applicant has exceeded the 5-minute time limit.
Okay, can you wrap it up?
I would like to conclude. I would like to conclude in that case.
Okay.
Here we have an application, Mr. Chair. Yes, we understand the sentiments of the neighbors, but we also look at the facts. Facts are the test. The staff is not objecting. The 15-meter is actually 84% of the 18-meter required. The 100 feet is, or 30 meters, actually 70% exceeding. If we lose the opportunity to do not develop this land now, and someone comes and build a multiplex or one house or whatever, they lose the opportunity for 70, 80 years. So the intent of the bylaw is 18 meter, and 15 meter is closer, not 31 meter or 30.48 meter. So we believe these variances are small. We have an application that is moderate, redevelopment or development, intensification, meets the official plan requirements, intent of the bylaw, and is desirable. And we have an application that is actually supported by the staff. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irfan. I'm going to ask you a question and then turn it over to my colleagues to see if they have any questions of you. My question is, in the initial part of your presentation, were you asserting that your client owns 2 registered lots on a plan of subdivision?
They own this property, which is comprised of 2 lots.
Okay, lot means legally conveyable.
They have one
If they are legally conveyable, you do not need consent.
Yes, you're right.
So they're not legally conveyable.
That is why we are here before the committee.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, that's why we are here. So we also look at the intention of the bylaw and intention of that our plan that is shown as an Exhibit 2D. The planning staff had a vision to convert this into 50-footers.
Yeah, but a reference plan has no legal status in terms of conveying what's conveyable. I could put an R plan on my property and divide it into 100 lots. That doesn't mean I can sell them. Your client owns a 100-foot lot and you wish to split it into 2 legally conveyable lots, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. McCauley, Mr. McKay, any questions of Mr. Irfan before we go into committee? No? Okay, then let's move into committee. Do either of you wish to comment on this or move right to a motion, whatever you wish? Yes, Ms. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And I do wish to comment on this. I am pleased that you raised the issue that the R plan doesn't give him two conveyable lots. If he had two conveyable lots, there's no need for a consent. That is a plan that was put on the property. You can do whatever you want with it, but you cannot build upon it and you cannot convey them as separate properties. That's important. The second thing that is important is that not all of Toronto is identical. And there are particular areas of Toronto, as we see over and over again with our consent and variance applications, that have a different character from the rest. Ridgewood Road is one that has character. There's a good reason why it's called Ridgewood Road. It is high ridge. I understand that was initially an esker or a moraine, and that's why it is so much higher than the lands on either side of it. The lands on either side of it were initially built for a golf course and have subsequently been redeveloped. But the Ridgewood Road itself, being a moraine property on high on a ridge, has some characteristics that make it a little bit more challenging to build. Certainly much more challenging to put in a system or put in municipal sewers and water. The application that we have before us, first of all, is for a consent application. And viewing a consent application, we need to look at both the Planning Act and the provisions of the official plan. I don't think this application complies with the policies of the official plan regarding preservation of community character and natural environment. The community has said that over and over and over again. This is the character, this is the natural environment. We can see it with the difficulty of building, with the difficulty of no sewers, with the difficulty of and septics. So in my mind, this consent application does not comply with the official plan. The variances are therefore not meaningful if the consent fails. That's all I want to say at this time.
Thanks, Ms. McCauley. Mr. McKay, do you have any comments?
Yes, thanks. Yes, I think I have more difficulty with the minor variance application, and I really, I think I back up my Ms. McCauley's remarks there. In other words, is the intent and purpose of the official plan, which does talk about respect and reinforcing the character of the neighborhood. Yeah, in my view, it does not. So, yeah, I don't think I could be supportive of the minor variance applications. That's my position.
And what about the consent?
I think that the lot size is appropriate, but I do have a concern about the properties having to be on septic tanks, and I'm not sure that that they could be built and functioned in an appropriate way. So really, I'm just sort of on a neutral position in terms of the consent application, and I think I prefer to put my position and weight on the minor variances not meeting the tests.
So I'm now going to invite a motion from one of you. Ms. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Almost called you Madam Chair. I was getting used to that.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, I put forth a motion for the consent application to refuse the consent applications as they do not comply with the policies of the official plan regarding preservation of community character and natural environment. They do not fit into the community and they are not desirable. In addition, the variances for small lot sizes and the need for specific setbacks because of the character of the lands create problems, and the variances too are not desirable.
Okay, do I have a,
Recommend refusal of both the consent application and the accompanying variances application.
thank you. Mr. McKay, are you prepared to second that motion?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. I second that motion to refuse these applications.
Okay, good. All in favor? That is unanimous. Refusal of both the consent and the minor variance applications. Thank you very much to Mr. Irfan, Mr. Saeed, and all the neighbors for taking your time and putting together your remarks for our consideration today. Very much appreciated. And now I will hand the chair back to the chair for our last item of the day.
Good.
Thank you, Member Taylor. Since you were on a roll, you could have just dealt with the last one as well. Just allow me a couple of minutes and I will log in.
Yeah, just.
Okay, so that brings us to the last item on the agenda for today. That is item 21. And may I please have the agent and the architect, Mustafa Khalil. So this is 33 Murray Avenue, item 21. All right, Mustafa, are you with us?
Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee. My name is Mustafa Khalil to MK Architect. Address 3461 Dixie Road, Mississauga. What we have is application for a lot 33 Moray. And the street itself, the character of the street or the lots are 50 feet frontage. This is a unique lot. The reason is there is a heritage house, which we are based on the severance. The total frontage of the current lot is 119 feet, and we do the severance to create to keep the existing lot with the heritage property as is with 71 feet and 7 inch. And they create a new property for the development of 47 feet 5 inch. So we've been through the process of heritage approval, and during the process, the heritage requested us is to push the house to the back to maintain trees as much as possible from the heritage tree. So what we have during the approval process, we pushed the house to the back, and that's created some of the variances. And out of the 83, we are just taking out 2 of them, and these 2 of trees, based on the arborist report, one of them is leaning on the neighbors, and one is unbalanced canopy. The variances for the existing house is related to maintaining the existing driveway. Based on the request of the heritage, we are maintaining the driveway, which is not complying with the zoning bylaw of today. So that's the variance there. For the proposed lot, it's what we have is the setback is 2 feet on the south side. The other is related, as I said, for the building depth, because since we push the house on the back, so the depth has become 28.75 meter. The proposed is 47 feet, a little bit less than the 50 feet. Also, the proposed is 0.47, the FSI, while the zoning allow for 0.4. Also, we have a platform on the second floor. Instead of 4 square meter, we are 5.5 meter. And also, since we have the setback on the south side, that's make the proposed eve is less than the zoning bylaw. These are the technical comments which we are. There is, I know there is from the urban forestry report what about the 2 trees, and we are willing to work with them if hopefully we can get the approval for the severance and the minor variance to work on these. In terms of, I don't know if there is any neighbors talking today. The rebuttal on the neighbors will be handled by the owner of the house, Mr. Khalid. For me, I'm just explaining the project, and if anything technical question by the committee, I'm here to answer.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a moment. So, Mustafa, while I have you, and you probably know that Urban Forestry has recommended a refusal of this application. So are you prepared to address it today, or do you want to consider deferral for your application to be able to address that comment?
No, I will address it because in their comment they say the denial because it's a heritage approval and they recommend the heritage planner approval, but the heritage provide us approval, and for the trees previously there were removing 4 trees, and when we push the house to the back we could maintain extra 2. So out of 8 we are maintaining, we are just taking 2, and also based on the heritage, we're adding some shrubs between the 2 proposed property line, and these are in response to the urban forestry required. If you see on the property line between the new lot and the proposed lot, there is like a proposed shrub. All of these proposed evergreen hedges. This all based on the discussion with the heritage. Like the urban forestry referring to a tree that's a heritage, but the heritage they approve that, and the approval is there on the portal.
I see what you mean. Okay, so all the adjustments that you've done to push the building back and everything is as a result to protect the trees, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're trying to protect the trees and hence that configuration. So in your opinion, you've satisfied urban forestry's concerns?
Yes, in my opinion, like you see the asphalt driveway, if the urban forestry are here in the committee, they want us like to reduce the width of the proposed driveway to I don't know if we can maintain another tree or not, but like we try to work with them as much as we can. As you see, like the concern majorly was with the heritage, but we got the approval from them. Like I don't know, like I think we satisfy the urban forestry.
Okay, so just so you know, we have not received any updated memo from Urban Forestry. What I have on agenda today is Urban Forestry's recommendation for refusal. But anyways, we'll try to hash it out through the deliberation.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
On the report, they recommend denial, but also they say if approved, we have to submit a permit for them for injury and a tree.
Understood. That I understand that. I was just not sure because from what I understood, the way you were describing it is as if all concerns were addressed. And then I thought that there was a sign off, but there's no sign off. In your opinion, you've addressed their concerns so far, but that has yet to be looked at by Urban Forestry. Okay, understood.
Because for us, like there's a conflict in their report, they are referring to the heritage, and we satisfy the heritage.
Yes, yes, okay. And I think staff has also investigated that and had further information on that as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go back, I'm going to go to the committee now and see if they have any questions for the applicant. Member Macaulay? Yes, please.
I think my question is very similar to yours, Madam Chair, that by pushing the house back, they can preserve that very significant row of evergreen trees in the front yard. Is there concern about trees in the rear yard?
No, we are not removing any tree on the rear because the heritage tree was only on the front, the 8 of them, and we are maintaining six of them after we push the house to the back.
Okay. A second question, and this is a little different question. I was looking at this as a heritage house, and when it was built, it was, according to the documentation, a house on 100 acres. Now we're getting it a house on a very small acreage, but the adjacent house that you're proposing to build, you're roughly 1 meter from the, no, I guess you're 2 meters from the Heritage House. I was wondering whether you had given any consideration to provide a bit of more space between the Heritage House and the new house in order to preserve more of the character of a heritage house with fields around it versus it being 1.8 meters between these two houses.
Okay, that's very doable question, and well, we've been to this exercise with heritage planning. Previously, our initial submission was sorry, 2 feet, 4 feet between the two lots. So they advised us that they need more, and when we revised our drawing and pushed the house to the south to maintain like 3 feet on each side, that was we got the approval. So even like we've been through this, and in the discussion we had like a Zoom meeting with the heritage planner to get their approval. So that was one of the requirements to maintain that 1.8 meter between the two houses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Member Macaulay. Okay, so we'll move on. To, was there any other question from any other committee member? Okay, I see none. All right, let's move on to, Mustafa, you mentioned that the owner would also like to speak, or that he would be available for rebuttal.
I think he would like to speak first, and also if at the end, if anything for rebuttal, he will take care of in terms of the neighbor
So he will,
concern.
he wishes to speak. Okay, so can we have the owner, Khalid Zia, please? The owner? Hello? Khalid? Yes, sir. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes. You're the owner of the property, correct?
Yes, yes. I do believe we have one neighbor who has some comments which I find that lots of issues with that. I want to make sure that I'll be given time to rebut that. Would it be in my 5 minutes if it's feasible that she talks first?
No, so, okay, so here's a little bit of an explanation on the protocol. I asked your applicant if he would be rebutting or not, and he indicated that you would be taking care of the rebuttal. Then I was also advised that you would like to speak now as well. So I was giving you the opportunity to speak to your proposal, and then after we've heard the speakers, then you can rebut.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to start off by saying that I'm lucky to find a job as an engineer helping with the construction of Scarborough subway extension. To help pay for this subway project, we need more densification, and as is noted in section 1. Growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe area 2020. I live within walking distance of the proposed new subway station. My house is accessible by TTC from both Brimley and Shepherd. The neighboring street, Salon Drive, has houses with frontage of 25 feet. And I'm proposing 47.5 feet. And also the bylaw is 50 feet in my street. On the corner of Fulham and Shepherd, Fulham being the street right behind my house, there's a new condo being proposed. 2000 Brimley, might remember, just got their severance with lots of variances and 38-foot frontage in April this year. 1997 Brimley also has a frontage of 38 feet that was severed. It is an underutilized lot and meets all the 4 tests and the section 5124 of the Planning Act. About the trees, the 2 trees that needs to be removed, both of them have issues, as is noted on the arborist report. One of them is leaning heavily on the neighbor's house with unbalanced canopy. The other one has a big split at the base of the trunk, and it has also lifted the asphalt on the driveway. Yeah, I at this point, I'll just, I guess I'll finish my presentation but I do have other stuff, which as a rebuttal, if
No,
needs be, I can talk about it.
yeah, so no, right now you've advised us of your proposal and pitched your case. So now we're going to go to the speakers, hear them out, and then you will take care of the rebuttals then. Okay?
Sorry, as just one last note, just to make remind that we do have the full councillors' support as well on this. We have the councillors' letter of support as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
so can we now please go to our first registered neighbor, Stephen Castleman, please. Hello?
Hi, you can hear me all right?
Yes, sir, I can. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, Madam Chair and panel members, my name is Stephen Castleman. I've lived for 50 years at 66 Keyworth Trail in the City Farquharson community, where 33 Murray is located. I asked myself, why am I here? The lot has over 36-meter frontage and is better than 50 meters in depth, large enough to split and have 2 decent lots to maintain the existing heritage designated home, as well as the second one. I'm here because of the very fact that a whole pile of time went into the heritage designation, and now a new owner wants to make some money by dividing up this historical site. In my opinion, that's not the direction we should be going. I was under the belief that heritage meant we were going to save some of these properties and buildings so that future generations could see firsthand our important past. I mean, why do millions of people go and visit the Great Wall in China? We are a relatively new country, and we made a decision to preserve some of our past. 33 Murray was the farmhouse of one of the first farms in the Scarborough area. The house and the property demonstrate how people lived and where the children played. And now someone wants to cut up the homestead and take down some of the 100-year-old Norway spruce trees to build a second house and ruin the look of what used to be a thriving household and play area for the Harris and White families, and to replace the 100-year-old Norway spruce with something immature. I'm sorry, that doesn't come close to compensation. I asked the president of the Heathwood Community Association, a Scarborough homeowners group, what his thoughts were. And Denny Lanou said, and I quote, "A new owner who buys a home should not be allowed to destroy the character of the property by taking down the trees and subdividing a lot for a second home." End of quote. And Rhoda Potter, the president of the Agincourt Village Community Association, said, and I quote her, "Interesting that heritage still means it can change. Agincourt Village Community Association worked to designate some homes as heritage. However, we were not successful. Makes you wonder what heritage really means." End of her quote. And Allura Moores, president of the Rosewood Community Association, another Scarborough group, said if it had been designated a heritage home, then it should be maintained as such. End quote. I was a member of the executive of the C.D. Farquharson Community Association for many years. Shortly after 33 Murray received its designation in 2017, the executive, under the leadership of Gary Laughlin, nominated Sheila White, the individual behind the designation, for an award given out by the Ontario Historical Society. Part of the letter, signed by Mr. Laughlin, said, and I quote, "The designation means that neither the farmhouse nor the majestic stand of spruce trees can be taken down. It means that this unique piece of our community's history is saved for future generations." End quote. This same Gary Laughlin, who signed that letter, is the individual who submitted a letter of support for this severance. Along with Gary, there is a letter of support from Mr. Leduca, the individual who purchased Gary's grass cutting business and was most likely to have been asked by Gary to submit a letter of support. Both letters should be stricken from the records. I don't have to tell you that it's the responsibility of the Committee of Adjustment to weigh all the details of the request. This request should never have come before you, but it has, and I urge you to turn it down and support our heritage. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions from panel members.
Thank you, Stephen, for taking the time to speak with us. Members of the committee, do you have any questions for the speaker? Okay. Stephen, have you had a chance to review the Heritage Preservation Services staff report?
I was reading a lot of the stuff, but there's so much that it's just too cumbersome, to be honest with you.
Okay, so just so you know, one of the attributes of this property is the majestic tree line that you refer to. That's the coniferous tree line. And I think there's an attempt being made to save some trees on the property. I don't have the benefit of having the designation bylaw that listed the attributes, but based on the report that's before me today from Heritage Preservation staff, it has gone through the review, through that process. They have seen the application. In fact, a heritage permit has been issued for this development, for the house itself or the property itself. So it's gone through extensive review. So I'm quite confident, and again, this is just my opinion based on what I'm reading, it's my opinion that there has been a very detailed and a robust review from a heritage preservation lens for this proposed development. I have not seen any flag being raised by heritage preservation staff who are, experts in this area. So I'm not seeing any concerns being raised there.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to flag that for you, that we have received this report from the experts, from the Heritage Preservation Department, and they've looked at all the aspects of it. And in fact, a heritage permit, as I mentioned, was issued. So again, a lot of those elements have been looked at. Nevertheless, we have heard your concerns, and definitely we will take that into consideration in terms of making a decision on the application today. So thank you, and we will now move to our next speaker, Sheila White. Hello, Sheila, you with us?
Yes, good afternoon. This is Sheila White from 14 Murray Avenue.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. You have 5 minutes. Please let us know what your concerns are with this application.
I've appeared here several times before talking about the 6 original streets of C.D. Farquharson community, Brimley, Pitfield, Fulham, Murray, McDermott, and Garden Park, where 4 severances have occurred. Very, very few. Twice since 2019, Council dispatched planning and legal staff to TLAB to defend this unique pocket, testifying at TLAB in 2021 that it is, quote, rare and deserves to be maintained, unquote, leading to a March 2022 decision to deny consent and variances at 105 Pitfield. Decisions at both TLAB and this committee have drawn a distinction between arterial Brimley Road and the 5 internal local streets. This application cuts to the heart of the argument about rarity and maintenance of uniqueness. It doesn't adhere to the property's heritage designation. It seeks consent and minor variances, and if approved, would not represent a minor change. There has never been a 31 Murray since the beginnings of our community, nor should there be, due to the heritage restrictions on altering the setting, and also because a division of ownership creates a new set of accountability issues regarding the heritage respect that 33 Murray has earned. The 42-page planning staff report seeking the heritage designation states that it applies to the entire property in its totality. The second bullet point of 10 is the setting, the line of coniferous trees, the cedar hedge, and U-shaped driveway, amended after the Conservation Review Board pre-hearing settlement exercise to still include the trees in the definition while lifting restrictions on the hedge and driveway. This line of 8 healthy trees has more protection from development than any other trees in the city. Not only do they have the Ontario Heritage designation and unanimous council approval twice for their protection, they also have a caveat stemming from the deal with the city that removed the hedge and driveway from the description, a condition that gave urban forestry the final say over any spruce tree removal for any reason. Urban forestry is dead set against this application. Under the OHA bylaw, all 8 trees are equally protected. This plan would kill, I was told 3 of them, but I'm hearing 2. Environmentally and symbolically, that's wrong. A city planner told me there are 40 heritage sites in Scarborough. The old Toronto, by comparison, has 4,000. What does it say about Scarborough Heritage if a designation only lasts for 5 years and can be undone so easily? With a property this rare, should not every step be taken to preserve its legacy to the letter and tell the story to future generations? An excerpt from TLAB Chair Christine Kilby's recent refusal of 105 Pitfield said, "Neighborhoods are not expected to stay frozen in time. The OP describes as cornerstone policy the goal of ensuring that new development in neighborhoods respects the existing physical character of the area," unquote, and so on. Granted, yet in this case, the setting at 33 Murray is the character of the area. Heritage, to a degree, does mean frozen in time. By achieving the OHA designation in keeping with my late mother's wishes, the story of Agincourt and its pioneers, including my father, was to have been preserved for all times. In 2017, everybody understood the intent of protecting the legacy setting at 33 Murray. Everybody, included the then councillor, Historical Society, Community Association, city planners, city lawyer, the family, realtor, and the first purchasers, who blocked the south driveway by planting cedars across it, which the next owner, the applicant, removed, along with the heritage plaque on the house after he took ownership. All I see is an undermining of the Ontario Heritage Act, combined with a request for special treatment. I've outlined my objections in my written submission and lawyer's letter. The White family took the steps the city told us to take, expecting that the city would uphold its end of the bargain. Even my current councillor opposes the variance requests. He told me this on Saturday. Chair and members, if you have to approve this, and I really hope you don't, because it dead ends any hope of a compromise, deferral, or appeal, I would beseech you to include a motion for a pre-construction condition requiring the applicant to donate $7,500 to Heritage Toronto and work with the White family and Heritage Toronto to have a publicly viewable heritage plaque approved and installed at 33 Murray Avenue, telling the Harris White story. The sum to include a $1,000 contribution to Heritage Toronto's diversity plaque program and $6,500 for the cost of the Harris White House plaque. Jack Harris, a pillar of Agincourt's farming history. Bill White, the first Black person in Canada to run as a candidate for federally elected office, decorated many times over, and Vivian White, also a generous community champion and Queen's Jubilee Medal winner for volunteerism. I don't want their collective legacy tossed and lost. I see no evidence of support from anyone living on the 5 internal streets, and this month the applicant contacted my lawyer and me sounding willing to make
Sheila,
concessions.
sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but you're over time, so you may want to conclude, please.
I'm done, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this information. Definitely insightful. Members of the committee, do you have any comments or questions for Sheila? Okay, appreciate that.
Madam Chair, if I could just take the opportunity to point out that in the 32-page submission that I put on the AIC, there is a comparison chart of the 2 heritage designation descriptions with the bullet points of what's protected under the Ontario Heritage Designation.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have this. I actually had this before me a few minutes ago, so I'm looking at it. I appreciate that. Okay, so we can now go to the applicant. So I would call upon the owner who had agreed to provide the rebuttal. So can I have Khalid there? Okay.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. You have 5 minutes, so please provide a response
Sure.
to all the concerns that have been raised today.
Sure. I think conveniently enough, she has provided all the evidence that is needed on the support material that she has uploaded, which is 169 pages. She sold the property in October 2018. And a year before that, she had actually emailed an objection letter to stop the property being designated as heritage. You can find the email on page 140 of 169 and the objection letter on page 142. This means that she did not care about the house getting demolished and all the so-called magnificent spruce trees removed. The trees had to be removed because they are located such that any new house would have to be built in that location. Contrary to what she did, I actually saved the property by proposing the new construction such that it would leave the house and the trees intact, except two of the trees, which those two trees actually have issues according to the arborist. I spent a lot of money to make it a nice, modern, cozy place to live in, and thus remove the need for it to be demolished. If she really liked the property or the house, she should not have sold it in the first place. If she sold it, the property came back in the market before I came. The seller put it in the market 3 times, every time reducing the price. She lives down the street, and her property is worth much more than this property. She could have easily bought this property back and had probably $500,000 in her pocket. Also, with regards to the urban forestry, so just their basic concern was that my application, I didn't have enough information, like the tree protection plan was not submitted, and my arborist applied for the tree non-construction related tree removal application, while it should have been construction related. We initially did, sorry, we initially did get the full support of the urban forestry, but after Sheila contacted them, specifically Deborah, about this being heritage, they changed their mind. But my argument is, as mentioned before, let the heritage take care of the heritage things in this property. The heritage, they basically told me we never put trees, vegetation as part of heritage. They die off after some years, and we have their full support, and we're willing to work with the urban forestry as well. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just as a matter of correction on the fact, trees are often included as heritage attributes, so I would have a different opinion on that. But anyways, that's irrespective or irrelevant to this. So what we have today is a heritage property that is being proposed for severance to create lots. There has been effort made by the applicant in collaboration or in discussion with the appropriate staff at the city. We have a staff report from Heritage Preservation Service. There weren't significant concerns. I think most of the concerns were sorted out through or addressed through the reconfiguration or the reconfigured design. Yes, there will be loss of 2 trees, and they happen to be the attributes of the heritage designation. However, that has also been reviewed by heritage preservation staff, which in my opinion are the experts in this area. So I'm going to leave it at that. Committee members, any questions for the applicant or the owner? Okay, are we prepared to take this matter into committee then? Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much for all those who spoke with us today. And we take the matter into committee now. Committee members, any thoughts, any comments? Yes, Member Macaulay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I have some thoughts and comments here. And I guess I see this as a difficult application in that when you're looking at a heritage building, you're not looking at just the building, you are looking at the surroundings, you to a certain extent look at the history. If you take the property that's around it and cut it up into little tiny pieces, I think you have taken away the setting for that heritage building. And so I have some difficulty with the consent application. I see that, yes, there have been changes to the area. This was 1888, a 100-acre farm. It no longer is that big. But I have concern that the proposed development really is diluting the attributes of the heritage building and the heritage setting. We have seen a number of heritage buildings where they have very sensitively kept the building and provided a development that is an attribute to it. I'm thinking of the ones on Kingston Road where we had some heritage buildings and a new apartment built beside it. We're able to manage to put the two together. This application, to me, I don't see anything different from this new house that's being proposed than any other subdivision house in the area. And my concern is that this is diluting the character, the ability to preserve a portion of the heritage for this area. Those are my comments. I'm willing to answer questions of other committee members.
I'm a little confused, Member Macaulay, when you say the fabric. I can appreciate that building's it's not only looked on its own, it's the fabric or the landscape within which it's set. I appreciate that. I don't think it's under our mandate to look at, maybe it's a question for you. When you referencing the character, were you referencing the architectural design of what's being proposed? For the new house? Or were you speaking to the the fabric of the property, like in terms of severance?
I guess I was referencing both.
Okay, so we can't, so unfortunately, we cannot, work on the we can't comment on the architecture, but we can certainly speak to the consent in terms of the fabric.
Okay, I am speaking to the consent. I'm a little concerned that the consent line is so close to the heritage building. I was looking at whether a smaller lot would preserve more of the setting and create more of a setting for this building. I'm trying to, I guess, wrestle with if we preserve a heritage property, is it just the trees and just the building? How much do we change and say that setting is no longer a heritage setting?
But here's my confusion, because the heritage attributes for the property is the building itself and the trees. Those are the two heritage attributes that have been defined in the bylaw, in the designation bylaw. And where I'm getting this information is the heritage staff report. So if you look at the HPS report on,
I agree, Madam Chair, that the heritage pieces that they've identified are the building and the trees. They haven't identified the land upon which the trees are located. Right. They haven't identified the setting of the fields around it. Exactly. But they also have not said it's fine to cut the property by creating a lot to the south as long as you keep the trees, a lot to the north as long as you keep the trees. All you need to do is keep the trees and the house, and we're satisfied. I'm wrestling with this.
Okay,
that isn't my idea of a heritage property.
Okay, fair enough. I hear your concerns. I was looking at, are there any impacts on the heritage attributes that make that building, the reason why it's being designated? In my opinion, I don't see an impact there, because the reason why this whole redesign of the new lot or the proposed house was sort of set at the back was to make sure that there was visibility to the house and that tree line was being maintained. Had the house been, moved further, we would have not been able to see the heritage house. So I think there has been an attempt made to keep the heritage quality on its own. But again, you know, this is sometimes heritage can be subjective discussion as well. So we each have our own opinion on that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to other committee members if they have any more questions or comments. Yes, Member Taylor.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with this proposal in that it does preserve a heritage home, does provide a building lot, which is very similar. Actually, both of the consent lots here are quite compatible with the lot pattern. You know, I can understand the concerns about keeping the amenities around the building the way they were, but you know, we can go back another 40 or 50 years and this house was probably in the center of a 100-acre lot. So that sort of overall original setting was disturbed a long time ago. You know, this is a city property. It's surrounded by city homes, and I'm just more impressed and taken by the fact that at least the heritage home is preserved. I heard Ms. McCauley's comment, and I agree with it. It's too bad the new house has to be so tight to the old one. But the heritage home is basically sitting in the middle of this lot. So, you know, they've done the best they could to sort of separate them. But I'm satisfied with this project in all respects. I think the minor variances that are triggered are very minor. I think it points to the fact that the lots being created are appropriate. That, you know, usually when that happens, you don't get many variances, and that's the case here.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, I'm quite satisfied with this proposal.
Okay.
The consent and the minor variance.
And if I can add to Member Taylor your comments, I think there's a few of those variances are being triggered as a result of how the house is being placed, right? In order to protect the heritage house and to maintain that visibility and to protect the trees and whatnot, right? So I think there's quite an intentional effort here and deliberate attempt here to save the attributes of the designated property. Okay, so on that note, if there are no further comments or questions, can I please have a motion? We can do the two together, or we could separate them. Just be mindful when you're separating. For consents, we should just list the conditions of urban forestry, the conditions separately for consent. And from based on what I see, it's so should the committee approve this application, it would be urban forestry condition number 5. And then Heritage Preservation Services.
Through the chair, that's a refusal.
No, but
Condition number 5 is a refusal.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. So what was the condition that should committee granted? What would be the condition from Urban Forestry?
There was no condition provided. It was just advisory.
Oh, there was just advisory. Oh, there was nothing there.
So should the committee approve this, the applications for the consent application? It would be subject to the engineering, construction services, and heritage
so
conditions.
On page 2 of the urban forestry memo, it says, should the committee approve this application in the knowledge that the tree removal injury will be required, urban forestry would then issue the tree removal injury permits subject to our authority under the bylaw. So they would have to obtain the permit, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So that would be a condition then. That a permit would be required should there be any injury or removal of a tree.
You are correct. You are correct.
Okay. All right. So again, ECS, the condition would be a revised R plan. Heritage Preservation Services condition requiring final building permit submitted to the satisfaction of HPS, and then urban forestry condition that should there be any removal or injury to the tree, a permit will be obtained. Okay, so I'm ready for a motion now. Yes, Member Taylor, please go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll table a motion to cover both the consent and the minor variance. With respect to the consent, I'm satisfied that the lot configuration is quite compatible with the pattern of the neighborhood. as it exists. And I'm very pleased that the effort has been gone into maintaining this heritage home, and then in addition, creating another building lot on a lot of similar size to what exists in the neighborhood. So I move approval of the consent subject to the urban forestry condition, heritage planning condition, engineering and construction services conditions, and the standard conditions of consent. And with respect to the minor variances, I find them to be indeed minor and meeting all the tests under the Planning Act. My particular sensitivity on minor variance applications usually hinge largely on FSA and lot frontage, but in this case, the lot frontage is about a half a meter short of required. The FSI is 0.476 relative to 0.4 permitted. So I think the minor variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. So I move approval of those as well.
Okay, thank you, Member Taylor. May I have a seconder, please? Member McKay, please go ahead.
Yes, I second that that motion to approve both the consent and minor variance applications here.
Thank you. And all in favor of this motion? Motion's carried and the applications have been approved. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. Are there any other business for discussion? Colin, is there any other business?
Through the chair, since the last hearing, there was a TLAB appeal that has been filed for 73 to 83 Brooklawn Avenue. These are consent and minor variance applications that were approved by committee, and it has been appealed by City Council, City of Toronto Council.
Okay, thank you. And just for everyone's benefit, next hearing will be a hybrid?
That is correct. For all the viewers out there, the next hearing, July 26th, will be Scarborough Committee of Adjustment Panel's first hybrid hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda, and not the agenda, the meeting. If there are no further business items, I would like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Member Taylor.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. And Member McKay seconds the motion. Remember, and we're all in favor. All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you next month. Have a good evening.
See you at the hybrid.
See you at the hybrid.
Okay.
Bye-bye.